Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course, and we are pleased to be joined by the new boys basketball coach at South Lyon. That, of course, is Jeff Schmitz. How's it going, Jeff? Of course, you're a head coach. Is this the first time you are a head coach?
First time as a varsity head coach. Yep.
Just kind of talk about, you're a South Lyon grad, so obviously that, the alumni factor came in. But overall, when this job became available, and obviously, when Troy's had this program for years, and of course to come in and kind of take over from the success that he had over the years, it's got to be special.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to come home. The South Line basketball program has done a lot for me, not only in my playing career, but just getting me ready for life after high school basketball. So to have the opportunity to come back and, lead a program that, like I said, has done so much for me, I'm just really grateful for the opportunity. And it's been, a really good start to get back in the gym with the boys and really start to build, hopefully, what turns into something special over the next few years.
Yeah. Okay, so just exciting. I bet it's exciting to put a roster together and get ready to go. Well, let's talk about some of the guys that are coming back for you guys, and some guys to watch out for.
So yeah, we are actually going to have a very young roster at the varsity level this year. We only return one varsity player from last year's roster, which is Rowan Fielder. Um, and we have five sophomores up on the varsity team this year. So, with that, we don't have a lot of varsity experience. So it's an exciting time in terms of we've got a lot of battles for roles early in the season, which has led to a lot of competitive practices. And, these guys, I'll say one thing about them, they may not have the varsity experience that some of the teams that they play against have. But these guys come out and we've had some really, really competitive, gritty practices here to start the season. So, as a coach, you can't ask for much more than that. We've got a really coachable group that loves to compete, and the growth has already been evident in 2 weeks. So I'm excited for what's to come.
Okay, so Ted, yeah, I just said five sophomores on a South Lyon team. That's actually sounds very familiar because I know Ron Levin a few years ago had to face something like that, and look how that turned out. But overall, just also talk about some of the guys that are names to watch, or maybe some names to look out for South Lyon.
Yeah, so a couple sophomores that have really stood out and expect to have big roles for us this year are Graham Braun and Aiden Robinson, both JV guys last year as freshmen, but guys that just they do the right things in the gym, and they just the way they approach the game and they want to get better, and that's these two guys, but that's really this whole group. And it's really hard for me to sit here and I know I can point those guys out because they're young, but it's really hard for me to sit here and tell you or single one or two guys out, because for me getting to know the program and getting to work with these guys, like I said, there's a lot of position battles up for grabs. So who we start on Tuesday in our season opener it isn't necessarily going to be the starting five for the whole year. So that's kind of one of the exciting things about this group is I think there's a lot of potential across the board, and I think you're going to see guys step into prominent roles and kind of compete for roles throughout the first half of this season before we really get a rotation solidified.
So you kind of answered another question I had. What do you see out of your team as you head into a game in just 2 days?
So I'm never one to sit here and tell you, we're going to win X amount of games or this is going to be a rebuilding year. I think to put that label on any group, especially at the high school level where there's so much development and growth within a season, is not something that I'm about. But what I can tell you and what to expect from this group is gritty. When we step on the court this Tuesday, our opponent's gonna work for everything they get, and just being around these boys for the time that I have been, that's something that is very evident in them and just how they approach the game is they're not going to give anything away. Our opponent may go on a run, and I have faith in these guys that they're going to battle right back and scratch and claw and make them work for everything they get. And that's really, if we can build that foundation and have that be one of our, core values within a team that with any night of the week, that's what other teams can expect. You're going to see a lot of growth out of this team, and you're going to see a team that can come into a gym any night and surprise somebody.
Yeah. So let's talk about. I know when you came to South Lyon when you were playing and during your playing days, obviously the conferences were way different. KVC days.
So I came in, the KVC just ended when I was getting to high
So
school. So
you
I was
were
the first
the
days of the
KLAA was
KLAA.
kind of was
Hmm.
started for him. So I could probably I can guess maybe around 2010, 2011.
So I'm a 2011 grad. Yep.
All right. So I know because I've been around so long. So obviously, the league is much different than when during your playing days, but obviously some of the teams that you played still remain. Um, you may see some of those old teams down the road, especially in districts. But going into the Lakes Valley Conference, when you look at this league, every league is a tough league, but it's just with this one, it's just like there's no off nights. Everyone can beat everybody, and look at over the years, it just keeps proving itself.
Yeah, I think, and like you said, in any conference that you play in, uh, it's a dogfight, and anybody can beat anybody on any given night. And to have our boys just have the mentality of, respecting their opponents when they walk in a gym, and never thinking that anything's got to be easy, and understanding that, we've got to do things our way and the right way, and not looking for the easy way out. Otherwise, like you said, anybody can come up and bite you and surprise you on any given night. So really trying to instill in our boys just what hard work is, and not taking shortcuts, and really understanding that if they're persistent and gritty and just come in and work hard, that the scoreboard will kind of take care of itself on a night in, night out basis.
Yeah. So kind of talk about the start of your season, because in the Lakes Valley Conference, of course, it's kind of all over the place. I mean, you could have some conference games, you could have some non-conference games, but overall, let's talk about who you guys got to start off the year.
Yeah, so we open up at Plymouth on Tuesday, which I expect to be a very competitive game. Going into an opponent's gym on a season opener, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a battle. And then on Friday, we get to come home and play in front of our home crowd for the first time, which is, I know the boys are really excited about. I'm really excited about. It's gonna be my first time back coaching a game in the gym that I got to play in. So really just, trying to enjoy the moment, as well as, prepare these boys for something, um, that is going to be a first time experience for them. Like I said, we have one player on our roster with varsity experience, so getting them ready for Tuesday night, trying to get them as acquainted to varsity speed as possible, so we can walk out there and put our best foot forward.
Yeah. Talk about some of the other opponents you have for the month of December. And
So we will play the others. We've got 5 games in December. Plymouth and Kettering next week. The following week we will play Novi at home, and then we'll go on the road to Livonia Franklin, and then we will finish up our December schedule with Livonia Stevenson the following. I believe it's a Monday game, actually, the Monday before break starts. And then
fun.
we're actually off all Christmas break. So we have about a 2 week span there with no games. And then we'll pick back up beginning of January.
Yeah. Awkwardly enough, a lot of the coaches, a lot of the teams that you play in December, you can go back and look back at, because we've had a lot of those coaches on. Especially, let's talk about that first game with Plymouth. Um, Obviously, you look at these are two coaches. You're in your first year as a varsity head coach. Andrew, of course, who we had on last week on the channel, is also in his first year as the varsity coach of Plymouth, took over for Mike. And of course, you took over for Troy. And then, of course, how big of a challenge is that going to be? Going up against somebody that's also kind of in the same situation as you, but they also have a 6'11" guy on their roster too.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of facing a challenge of, a quick turnaround from tryouts this year. From the first day of tryouts to season openers, it's 2 weeks and a day for most teams. So, I don't get too wrapped up in, um, you know, the background, the first year head coach. I'm just worried about putting my time and pouring into my boys and doing everything that we can to get ready for them. Um, we'll do our due diligence in terms of scouting and try and get as much information on players and potentially what they could throw at us. But we're really focused on preparing ourselves and getting ready for Tuesday night.
For sure. Um, and on that note, let's talk about what do you want to see out of your team in this first month, because you've got 5 games, you have a couple conference opponents, but a lot of them you have most of them are in the KLAA. So kind of goes back to that old the KLAA day, but I don't know if you played any of those teams. But let's kind of talk about that. What do you want to see out of your team really heading in to Christmas break?
You know, I really just want to see growth. I want to see these guys with having such a young team. I want to see how they handle adversity. I want to see, when the other team goes on a run, what's our response to that? The more, and you see it all the time, whether you're watching college basketball, high school basketball, you see these veteran-laden teams that start the season strong because they have so much experience to rely on. We're not going to have that experience. So, and we've talked about this numerous times within our program of, how are you going to respond when something doesn't go your way? Because nobody's ever played a perfect season. So, in terms of nothing ever going wrong, there's been undefeated seasons, sure, but just seeing the growth in these young guys, and if we can take a step forward every night that we step on the court, whether it's practice, whether it's a game, that's what I'm really looking forward to because our guys that they have some potential, and I'm excited to see them grow and kind of start reaching that potential because I think if we do that and we compete on a night in and night out basis, we're going to have an exciting season.
Yeah. All right, Jeff Schmitz, thank you so much for coming on. Congrats on coaching your alma mater once again, and best of luck this season.
Thank you, Casey. Really appreciate the time.